A very good evening and welcome to the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. We're talking about fuel taxes in detail today on the show. In the middle of all of this debate, the real question is truly being missed. There's no doubt that the taxes have to be reduced. That's the only way we will get relief from retail prices which are touching close to 100 rupees per litre for petrol. Question is, who will reduce them, centre or state? Whenever there is a topic which is hotly debated, which is hitting your WhatsApp groups and everybody is talking about, you need to look behind the chatter to see what the real question is and what the important point is that you should be focusing on. So today we're going to talk about the jamboree around high petrol and diesel prices at the retail level, at the petrol pump, where petrol per litre has crossed rupees 100 in some states and in some cities. Now it has turned into the very predictable political fight with the opposition parties blaming the Modi government for high fuel prices, and considering that 60% of fuel prices at the retail level come because of taxes, the question is, why can't you reduce taxes? On its part, Prime Minister Modi and the Modi government is saying that India's high dependency on imported crude, which was not fixed by previous governments and largely Congress-led governments, is why we have to pay through our nose for petrol and diesel, because we import most of our fuel and the prices internationally are sky high. So higher the crude prices, the more you and I pay. But the real question that's being missed in the middle of all of this is, who should cut their taxes? Should it be centre or should it be state? And this is the important question, because the fact is both central and state governments are overly dependent on taxes that they collect at the petrol pump from the petrol and diesel that you consume. It's an easy, convenient and cheap way, an efficient way to collect taxes. So let's take a look at the data on who gets how much from petrol and diesel taxes. So let's start from the central government. Now, as per the budget 2021 and the numbers they've put out, let's take a look at what they're getting from excise duty. That's the central government getting from excise duty. Now, as per BEFY 22, that means budgetary estimates for the financial year 2022, the government will make about 3.35 lakh crore rupees from these taxes. These are just budgetary estimates. They could be more, considering the RE for FY21 exceeded the budgetary estimates earlier and high number of taxes were levied. They were jumped up, remember, in March and May of 2020, just as the lockdown was hitting. So if these taxes are not rolled back, the government will make quite a hefty sum. The question is, will they let that go? Add to this the new agricultural infra cess, which has now been put on petrol and diesel, and other central taxes have been reduced to accommodate these. The government, as per some estimates, could get up to 49,000 crore rupees from this, and this is a neat amount which comes straight to the central government. It doesn't have to share it with the states. Remember, whatever the central government gets from excise duty, they have to give 42% to the states. So the question is whether they have laid the ground to reduce excise duties and keep a neat chunk for themselves. Now, how much does the central government get from fuel taxes, that's petrol and diesel taxes? Well, some estimates are that 20% of the indirect tax revenue for the central government comes from taxes on petrol and diesel. Now let's look at the states, and here it gets interesting, because states are constantly saying that, hey, we don't have so many tax revenues in a post-COVID scenario. We have only petrol and diesel and alcohol pretty much left to us, as well as real estate. We can't let go of that, which is why petrol and diesel taxes are not under GST as well. So what is the breakup for states is something we should look at. Before we get into the number game for states, I must tell you that it works out well for states if central governments do not reduce their taxes, because state government taxes, that's the value added tax or VAT that they impose, is ad valorem. It means it's calculated as a percentage on a base, and that base includes what the central government charges as excise duty. So the higher the excise duty, the more the tax that state governments get as well. So at the end of the day, both of them are really benefiting if the taxes remain high, including excise duty. So let's come to the state share of taxes, and this is an average across states, that states get about 23% of their revenue from petrol and diesel taxes. Now let's look at it state-wise, and here for the purpose of this explanation, we're talking about value-added tax overall and assuming that most of the value-added tax for states comes from fuel taxes, and a big proportion of it actually does. So I want to start with Maharashtra because the thinking is that Maharashtra has a really high proportion of VAT, and it is pretty high at 18%. But let me then come to Tamil Nadu, where the VAT component is a whopping 38%. So one can then ask, does this state have more legroom to reduce VAT on their end? Let me come to Uttar Pradesh, which is now 17% of revenue from VAT. Rajasthan, where the taxes have been pretty high, and you've seen pump prices hit 100 rupees, again has quite a high amount of VAT revenue, which is at 27%. Andhra Pradesh is at 37%. Of the total revenue comes from value added tax, and most of them from fuel taxes. If I come to Telangana, then that number is 32%. So overall, you see that states are highly dependent on fuel, and some states get more taxes from VAT than other states. So they can't be one size fits all as an answer. Some states do have the scope to reduce taxes. Some states don't have as much scope to reduce taxes. The central government definitely has scope to reduce taxes. The question is, who will blink first? Because at the end of the day, whether you believe it or not, it is a political question about reducing taxes, which will ease the burden for you and me. Our Gopalan, former Finance Secretary, joins us on the discussion this evening, as does Pratik Jain, Leader, Indirect Tax at PWC. Madan Sabnavis, Chief Economist at Care Ratings, also joins us on the show. Welcome to all of you, and great to have you on the India development debate. Let me come straight to the basic question we're raising today and go across to Mr. R. Gopalan first. Center or state, who needs to reduce taxes, Mr. Gopalan?
Well, this is a very, very difficult question to answer because both need funds for the development expenditure. So you look at it from the viewpoint of the broad numbers. The own tax regime of states is about 45 to 50%. The central transfer is about 25 to 29%. Then the balance is through borrowings and other private, public savings money being taken. Now, my information is that of the own revenues which the states, have, 25 to 35% of the state's own revenue is from the petroleum products. So, looking at that, what I find, and your numbers which you have given correctly, is the central taxes is 37% and state taxes is 23% overall. That gives an indication as to who should reduce first. One. Two, you look at the recent changes that has taken place of reduction in excise duties and more into the cesses.
Gopalan, but please spell it out.
Yeah, the reduction.
I request you to spell it. I request you to spell it out.
Okay, you see,
who should reduce first? I think we should be crystal clear.
Okay. Now, you see, there are reasons why I am saying what I am saying. My view is that the center should reduce first. Two things. One is the state's ability to, reduce is restricted because their own revenue shortfall. Then the borrowing, they have a problem in borrowing. Then the transfers, which are otherwise would have come to the states, have been blocked in the form of cesses, going to about 1.9 lakh crores. And the total devolution to the states have also not gone up, only about 1% in the last 2 years. So the states have difficulty in their revenue resources raising. So as a result, because of the fact that center also charges higher rates of taxes on the fuels, And the ability to raise revenues by the states is restricted due to various reasons, especially this year thanks to COVID, the health expenditure going up significantly. Now, I think that there is a possibility that center can reduce taxes.
We should also take into consideration, and that's a very important point that you've made, Mr. Gopalan, that in the year 2020, about 13 rupees a litre on petrol and 16 rupees a litre on diesel was increased in terms of excise duties by the centre, and that cushion still sits there, which is why you've had about 94,000 crores more than what was budgeted in revenues from this head for the central government. So let me come as that follow-up to you, Madan Sabnavis. Why is the centre not doing it? What is that cushion kept for? And in this context, how do you see this agricultural infrastructure cess which has been levied? Because the central government doesn't have to share cess, unlike excise duty.
No, in fact, I think, Tamanna, the thing is that both the centre and the states are using this particular thing on excise and VAT on fuel products to pay for the deficit. Now, the fact remains that deficits are going to be high and the elasticity of demand for petrol products is less than that for other things. So while things like GST collections depend upon how the economy behaves, how you and I spend, in case of things like petrol and diesel, they will have to be spent because people are using their own vehicles. Transportation requires the use of vehicles which use these fuels. So I think that both the centre and the states need to reduce these taxes because I think it's really abnormal right now. In fact, if we go back 2 years when the price was in 18-19, when the price of crude oil was around $70 per barrel, we had much lower prices. So quite clearly, I think it's been fairly exploitative. Both the centre and the states have garnered a lot of revenue on account of these two products. And now that you're talking of the cess, since that doesn't have to be shared by the centre, I think the centre will have to cut by more than what the states do. But I think both of them have to actually do it because such kind of prices of 9,500 is going to be very inflationary. And that's going to tie the hands of the RBI because we've already seen the prices going up. Core inflation going up, manufactured prices are going up, transportation costs are going to go up, food prices are going to go up. So I think they will have to blink right now, and I think there is need for reduction on both sides.
No, but Madan Sabnavis, if you can go deeper into that, both should reduce is apparent because both are the ones who are charging the tax. The fight right now and the context right now is who goes first. It's a pehle aap going on. The central government is saying that your taxes are ad valorem. So, as crude prices increase, you make more money. So, you reduce taxes. The state government is saying that, listen, my resources to raise revenue are limited. As per statute, they can't even borrow as much. So, you reduce taxes. That is the question we must do. Yes, both should reduce taxes. Everyone should reduce taxes. It's great for the consumer. But who needs to do it first is the question, Madan.
Gopalan said, I think it is right. The centre has to do it. And as you have rightly said, that it's an ad valorem tax for states. So if the centre reduces, say, by 1 or 2 rupees, automatically, given the kind of rates which different states have, that will also come down. But the initiative has to be taken by the centre.
Okay. Pratik Jain, is there any solution over here where the central government and the state government can both reduce taxes, and do we need a state by state kind of a formula to go forward? We are already seeing the impact of politics coming in. Assam has reduced taxes, Meghalaya now has reduced taxes as well, but what about other states? What will really push them to reduce taxes?
Look, in a federal structure, states are, of course, free to decide what they have to do. But I would want to sort of slightly change the narrative a bit as to, what everybody's saying taxes have to be reduced. And that's a fair point. But the question really is where the money will come from, right? I mean, you have projected 9.5% fiscal deficit this year. And the government has, as you showed in your chart, 361,000 crore they're projecting as excise duty. Next year, they're projecting 335,000 crore excise duty. So that means there is a 26,000 crore reduction. And therefore, intuitively, you would say that a central government should reduce taxes. But the big question which remains is that with all this expenditure that we're talking about, 6.8% deficit next year, where is the money going to come from? So it's easy to say that taxes should be reduced, but nobody is answering that question that, what are the other avenues of of collecting tax. They're also now talking about reduction in GST, right, which is hopefully going to be decided by the GST Council. So all of that will mean lower revenue for the government. Now, coming to the solution, I think its solution lies in consultation, right? I mean, you can't have a structure till the time GST is made applicable on petroleum products, and I don't think that's going to happen quickly. Not certainly on the passenger fuel. Maybe on industrial fuel, it could start with natural gas and things like that. But for passenger fuels, for it to come on GST will take a long time. And therefore, once it comes under GST, GST Council has to decide, and therefore the ability of the government to increase and decrease the taxes frequently will go away. As of now, I think the only solution is the center and states they have to work together and figure it out. And bear in mind that whatever taxes are reduced at the central government, 42% of that goes to the state, and therefore the states will get directly impacted as well. It's not a question of saying, okay, central government should reduce the taxes, but then 42% of that will not go to states. And every state has its own finances. Every state is in a huge deficit. So I think this is a very, very difficult question. You also made a point that it was increased in May.
But it is.
Yeah.
Pratik, I'm holding down everyone to answer that moot question. And yes, the explanations are absolute, and the context is absolutely necessary. It is not a yes or no answer. I get that. There are gray areas there. But that is the question in front of us right now. Because that is the narrative that people are being fed, right? That one of the two has to blink first. Logically, who should it be? And I've asked the other two participants that question. That's why I must pin you down and ask that as well, Pratik.
No, I first of all, I'm not propagating in any manner the taxes. If taxes are reduced, then government has to find another way of increasing taxes. They have not increased the income tax rates, they have not increased the GST rates, and so on and so forth, and therefore it is and the expenditure going through the roof. I don't think it's fair to say that taxes have to be necessarily reduced. There is a case to say taxes have to be reduced. If taxes have to be reduced, then ideally it should be central government who should take a lead. But then all the states have to come together and also say that they are willing to do their part as well. It can't be a one sort of arm of the government doing it. So I would think that it will happen simultaneously. As you said, some of the states have very, very high rate. In VAT system, almost all the states agreed at one point in time that they will have a 12.5% as a standard rate on most products, right? Maybe all the states have to agree that, let's say 20% would be one rate, which all the states will follow at the same time. So that has to happen. Otherwise, central government would say, why should I reduce? At the end of the day, consumers belong to the center as much as they belong to the states.
All right, we're talking about who should cut taxes first. Who should blink first? Should it be central government? Should it be state government? There is no question that both center and state need the taxes they get from petrol and diesel, but is it getting too much at this point? Because as crude prices go up internationally, so will retail prices at the pump, and that big fat proportion of taxes, which is 60% of what you pay per litre, is just sitting there. We're waiting to figure out who will give us relief first, center or state. That's a question which is brewing right now between the two sides, which is why we're asking it. Let me go across to Madan Sabnavis. Madan Sabnavis, Pratik Jain, before the break, was making the argument that frankly neither can afford to reduce taxes. This is still a post-COVID year. Do you agree with that theory? And can we really stick to that point of argument, considering we're expecting growth to rebound, right? And that should boost up GST collections, hopefully?
Yeah, actually, I would have a different view from Pratik out here because we cannot use the argument saying that in case I don't get revenue from petrol and diesel, then where is the money going to come from? I'm quite sure that when the government formulated the budget, they must have had a certain idea about what would be the crude oil price, an assumption made of crude oil price, and accordingly must have conjectured as to what exactly would be the revenue coming from excise duty on petrol and diesel. So now we have seen that since the budget has been introduced, the price has been going up. So quite clearly, I think it's easy money coming from the government and they're just sitting back and enjoying whatever is happening. So I think the logical thing is to really revisit and let the public know as to what exactly were the assumptions made. That did they assume it to be $60 per barrel, 61, 65, whatever. And accordingly, if we get to know that, I think it becomes easier for the center to actually reduce their taxes. As far as the states are concerned, I think we're not quite sure. The budgets are not yet out, so we don't know what kind of assumptions they have made. But on the whole, I think definitely, given the fact that subsequent to the budget, we have seen the retail prices going up. That itself is a clue to say that the center has definitely gained more on account of the developments which have taken place, and therefore they will have to probably compromise first by cutting their duties.
Quick last comment from R. Gopalan. Do you think there is enough room for states and some states in particular to cut? If so, which ones?
You see, let me put it this way. First, the inflationary impact, second round inflationary impact of, fuel prices going up is not good enough for the economy, especially when core inflation is inching up. It's very steady and it is not coming down. One. Two, as far as states are concerned, in terms of revenue, the elasticity of revenue for states is very much high, which means that if the GDP goes down, then the revenue also goes down more drastically than what it happens as far as the center is concerned. So states are the one who are would be suffering because of the GDP decrease at this, the negative growth as well as other kind of growth not being there. They are the one who are going to suffer very badly. Thirdly, they take up a good amount of social welfare expenditure, including on health and the COVID, this thing they have taken up in a very, very big way. They do a lot of infrastructure expenditure against 4.5 lakh crores of center. They do 6.5 lakh crores. So they do a lot of work on infrastructure. So in my view, the states must be given a little bit more leeway at this point in time. They should be asked proportionately to reduce taxes less as compared to center. And second, center has a way of diverting from the excise, which is shareable, to cess, which is not shareable. And that has gone up by 1,90,000 crores this year as compared to the last year. So that deprived the states again of the legitimate revenue. So I think all in all, looking into all these factors, I would say that the center must be prepared to walk the talk at this point in time.
Center has actually budgeted for it, many believe. The cushion is there. You just have to go ahead and reduce it. Hopefully, an announcement will come, although we did hear from Oil Minister Dharmendra Pradhan in Parliament a couple of weeks ago that there's no plan as of now. We'll see if that situation changes.